think the term mid is pretty funny in the context of games, but for this list I think it's a decent way to lump these games together. It's not necessarily that all these games are 7 out of 10 experiences. They could be actually fantastic games with bad development cycles, games with a polarizing reception, or games that are just plain old and more simple for a modern audience. Regardless, games that are even a bit forgettable or unremarkable in some ways have merit to me in others, and often they still have fond memories for me when I look back on them. So without any more delay, let's get on with the list. I think Final Fantasy XV is the poster boy of mid-RPGs. It recently had its 10th anniversary and there's tons of discourse surrounding it in Versus 13. I actually really did enjoy my time with 15. It's a bit of a mess all around, but the gameplay is fun and I love the main cast of characters. It is unfortunate that it had such a tumultuous development cycle and we'll never get to see what it could have been. Honestly, the ending gave me some crazy whiplash as well. It could have been real cool to see this story fully realized in the game. It is a bit odd out of all the modern Final Fantasy games they decided not to make sequels for this one, which is a shame because I probably would have bought them. I don't really like that business model though, but I would have paid some money to see this one through. That pretty much says how attached I was to it. It's a mess, but it has pretty awesome bones, and it definitely exemplifies mid for me in its purest form for RPGs. I still love it, but there is definitely a lot to be desired at the same time. Oblivion is pretty much a love or hate it game at its core. It's a weird, whimsical, but charming game. I mean, most people just play it for the memes and just make a purple looking dude and call it a day on the character creation screen. Which is great. I think it's awesome that the game lets you have so much fun with it right from the get-go. I've seen a lot of critique on Oblivion being not as good as Skyrim. People can't go back to Oblivion after playing Skyrim, all that jazz. I enjoy both games and what they have to offer. It's hard to say which is better for me. I think for everything you gain in Skyrim, you do lose a bit of that undeniable charm Oblivion has. I mean, there are parts that just make me laugh out loud in Oblivion, whereas Skyrim is pretty serious majority of the time. The weakest part of Oblivion has to be its dungeons. I don't even think Oblivion is that mid, but it is a common thing people like to bring up about it, so I thought I'd throw it in here and defend it a bit. And with mods, you can fix a ton of issues the game has, which is pretty cool. Dragon Quest I recently got an incredible remake, but I've still seen some comments about it being boring and samey. It's an RPG recreated from the ground up back from the 80s. It's gonna be a little archaic. I think the appeal of this game for me though is just the fact that the player is solo the entire game. There aren't many JRPGs where this is the case. I can think of like Undertale or the original Ys, or like Dark Souls if you want to count that as a JRPG. As far as a turn-based RPG goes though, this is a pretty crazy concept. There really aren't that many games out there doing this, and the fact that it did it so well from so long ago really impressed me. The remake just elevates the game itself, along with a bonus side quest line that I really enjoyed. This is honestly one of the better Dragon Quests out there now in my opinion because of its brevity. If you want to play a shorter, more simple RPG, this is definitely a good choice. Trails the Third is a bit of an oddity when it comes to the Trails in the Sky trilogy. It's kind of a complete departure when it comes to its gameplay and is more of a dungeon crawler. The dungeon crawling isn't too bad, it's actually pretty fun, but it doesn't reach the level of something like Shin Megami Tensei either. It's also a bit of a departure story-wise too. The main character is Kevin and not Estelle in this one. It fills in some gaps and really fills in the player on Kevin's backstory, and honestly the story of this game is really good. This game gets way darker than the previous two games, and it does make me interested if Falcom is going to remake this one. I'd be pretty interested to see if they end up changing a lot of what's going on here. I haven't played the entire Trails series or anything, but I had a ton of fun with this one. It could be viewed as mid because it's pretty much a departure from the previous two games, and I rarely see anyone talk about it, aside from the doors with crazy exposition about certain characters. I have to say this entry feels the most video gamey out of the whole trilogy. It has a lot of combat and just less NPC involvement in general. Either way, I enjoyed this game for what it was, and I think it's kind of underrated when it comes to the trilogy. Kingdom Hearts 3 in a nutshell is pretty underwhelming. Half the levels aren't that great, it feels a bit lacking content-wise, there's like no Final Fantasy involvement compared to previous entries, the combat is way slower than Kingdom Hearts 2 or even 1 for that matter. It's just a complete departure from previous games in the series, which makes sense since the Kingdom Hearts team from before is busy with Final Fantasy VII Remake. but I think this game is a bit of a shame in that regard. It's a lot like Final Fantasy XV where it had a ton going for it. We waited a long time for it to release, and it just kinda dropped the ball in some ways. With all that said, I mean it's still Kingdom Hearts. I love this series and it's definitely one of my favorites out there. It's still fun, and I'm thinking about firing this one up again to see the DLC I never got around to. Not to mention the graphical fidelity here is pretty awesome. It makes me really excited for Kingdom Hearts 4 and if it can turn things around. I could be setting myself up for disappointment, but I'm kind of a lifer when it comes to this series at this point. Secret of Mana is kind of a classic in a lot of people's eyes, I mean myself included. I love the Super Nintendo catalog of RPGs, and this one is no exception, but the combat in this game is extremely dated when it comes to its magic system. I mean the magic is pretty much completely exploitable, you can just spam it over and over on bosses and it kind of destroys the game. Then the difficulty spike towards the end is pretty crazy. It's by and large a product of its time. I mean it's a 90s Squaresoft RPG for sure, but yeah, it's hard to ignore its flaws. The atmosphere, music, and art direction here really bring this game to a different level though, so beyond all of its flaws, I really do still love this game. It's too bad the remake of Secret of Mana isn't that great. It really deserves a full reimagining. I think it could be real cool. Calling Castlevania 64 an RPG is a bit of a stretch, I have to admit. It's more of a Zelda-ish type adventure style game, but I figured why not and threw it on the list. I actually really like this game. It's kind of clunky and laggy and messy, but it's actually a pretty decent game if you can look past its shortcomings. It is, like many other games on this list, a pretty big departure from other games in the series. It's the first 3D game in the series and I think it holds up. Sure, it's not going to be one of the best games ever made, but it has pretty cool art, the movement and platforming is fun, and it's just a good time. I might have an affinity for this game because I grew up with a Nintendo 64, but I do think it has some merit in the current market. There's a few platformers coming out in recent times like Pseudo Regalia that remind me of it, and I think it's a bit underappreciated. Admittedly, I was surprised by the Metacritic score, because I've seen this game thrown straight to D or F tier in some tier lists out there. Remnant isn't exactly a bad game, but it's definitely a forgettable game. The combat and co-op gameplay is superb, but beyond that, I can't really remember a single thing about it. It's got a cool setting and some randomly pretty interesting NPCs, but you really play this one for the combat and bosses. It kinda takes me back to the Halo or Call of Duty days, but it just doesn't have that story campaign to back it up. It's not exactly a bad game by any means, but I think it could qualify as mid, so I had to put it on the list. As with most games on this list, I still love my time with it though. I played it with my partner and it was a ton of fun. That final boss is kinda crazy though. Sable is a bit of a stretch to call an RPG. It kind of feels like playing Eco but in an open world. This is a game I really wanted to love, and for most of the time with it, I definitely did love it. I love games where atmosphere and exploration are the focus, and this game has a surprising amount of fun NPCs to talk to. The game is unfortunately really poorly optimized though. It kind of runs like doo-doo in various parts of the game, which is a shame. I love the art style and everything going for it. Riding around on motorbikes was awesome and it made me feel like I was in Star Wars. There are parts of this game where the soundtrack kicks in and it honestly got me really emotional. It has some really high highs, but it's too bad about its performance. Maybe someday I'll brute force my way through everything this game has to offer. It really is perfect for when you don't want to play something too challenging. Sunhaven is another one of those farming simulator RPGs. I grew up with Harvest Moon and I played a bit of Stardew in the past, so I'm definitely into this genre, but I'm not absolutely obsessed with it like some people. I'd play this co-op with friends and it's a ton of fun to just mess around, and it's got a surprising amount of content and story going for it. The character designs kind of remind me of MapleStory or something, which is a bit of a nostalgic feeling for me. It's actually a pretty cool game, but I think for me, any farming simulator game might hit the element of slightly mid. Which isn't to say it's terrible. It's just a chill time, but it's not going to change your worldview or anything. It feels like Stardew with a bit more fantasy elements, and for that, I actually give it some props. It's cool to see this genre going a different direction with its setting. Star Ocean 1 on the Super Famicom was pretty cool. It was the first game of the series and it marked a new direction for the team that split from the Tales team at the time. I've recently started getting into the Tales series, so it's cool to see how they compare and contrast. This first entry in the series is pretty awesome. The graphics and art style for a Super Nintendo game are some of the best on the system. The mechanics of the game are also pretty forward-thinking for its time. A lot of this game's systems get a bit more refined in the second story, but this was still cool to play beforehand. I remember the battle system getting a bit samey, and the final dungeon being so crazy that I gave up, but overall I actually still enjoyed this one a lot. There is a remake of this game called First Departure that does look pretty good as well. I might give that one a go after I've played all the games in the series just to see the differences. And that's my list of some quote-unquote mid-RPGs. Let me know what RPGs you've played that you found kind of underwhelming but still enjoyed overall. As always, if you could like and subscribe, or not, the world is your oyster. I hope you have a great rest of your day.